Hi, I'm Vernon L. Bowling, and welcome to another edition of Focus. As I hope you know, Focus has been on the air for over 40 years. We've been continuing to bring you the African American community problems, accomplishments, as well as successes that we've had within the African American community. Don't touch that remote. Matter of fact, you can get your pencils or papers together and write down some information that we're going to give to you that's going to be very important that you probably can use later. We'll be right back with more Focus after these messages.
Little things that might seem simple could have such a big impact. I'm putting my effort towards an outcome. You have to put effort into it to be part of a community. When you play the lottery, your money stays here in Arizona. It actually goes back to your community. You're helping out your state.
Hello, I'm Fatima Halim, and I am your host for Focus. I have a 15-year-old grandson. Actually, he just turned 16, but this boy lives and breathes basketball. That's all he wants to do. He doesn't want to read, he doesn't look at television, he doesn't play the games like the other kids do, but he lives, eats, and breathes basketball. I would always ask him, can you please read something? I would give him books, all kinds of books. I would bribe him, but he just wouldn't read. He just never liked to read. But one day, I told him, I said, look, I want you to read this book. It's written by a friend of mine, and let me know what you think about it. I want you to just give me your opinion. Well, let's say about 3 hours later, he came to me and he said, Grandma, this book is good. I was shocked. I was shocked because he read the book. I was even more shocked that he was able to tell me about what the book was about. It was exciting to me. And I hurried up and told my friend, Ghazi Muhammad, and I wanted him to join us today because perhaps he can give us some insights into not only why he wrote the book, but what the book is all about and the kind of father he is, because I've been watching him for a while and he is an incredible father and he has a great story. So I'd like to welcome my friend, Ghazi Muhammad.
Thank you.
It is so good to have you here. Now, I told you about what my grandson did. I told him he just read the book. He had no qualms about it. He totally enjoyed it. What do you think it was about the book that made him 15 at the time, but he's 16 now, and this was like maybe a couple months because he just turned 16. What do you think it was about the book that made him really interested?
Well, I think, because the book is dealing with authenticity, I think right now we live in a world where, especially young people, they have to live behind masks and they live other than themselves. They got to put on fronts for their friends, and right now the dominant influence among young people is their peers. And oftentimes it's hard to be myself, my authentic self, because I got to live up to a certain standard that my peers think I should be, or my parents think I should be. So right now, so many people wearing masks. We're not being true to ourselves. And the price that we pay for that is that we suffer from a lot of emotional and psychological issues personally within ourselves, because it's hard, like, not being myself. So the book is dealing with just straight up authenticity, being true to yourself. From beginning to end, being true to your parents, being true to your peers, being true to your teachers, but most importantly, being true to yourself.
So when you wrote it targeting his age group?
Well, not necessarily targeting that age group, but it was born up out of that age group, because I have children in that age group right there, and also a lot of the work I do is with young people. So I see that's a like a prevalent problem among young people, being other than themselves, and having to put up front. One lady I know, a case years ago, her son committed suicide, and he committed suicide because things were found out about him that he didn't want everybody to know, a certain lifestyle he lived. But because he wore that mask and he was hiding certain things, when it was found out, he thought that his life was over and he wound up killing himself, And that really affected me, and it made me think, like, wow, like, no matter what we into, like, be true to yourself. The beginning of change and growth got to start with being authentic first with self.
You work with our boys in our Rites of Passage program, our sons program. You've been very wonderful about volunteering your time. Your sons went through, or two of your sons went through our program. Three of your sons went through our program. I took your daughter to Africa this year. One of your daughters went to Africa. Two of your daughters were in the Blueprint for Womanhood program, and they were stellar. They were just absolutely wonderful. Now, you yourself, however, had a pretty rugged childhood. I mean, I know your story. You're getting ready to do the whole story. We're going to be on the show together with some storytelling. Yeah, so am I. It's going to be fun. But what did you do to be such an incredible father when your own life was so reeked with pain and chaos and drugs? What happened?
Yeah, I think with me, I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. So growing up, I didn't know my father when I was younger. I didn't meet my father, biological father, until I was 15 years old. And when I met him, I remember the first day I met my father, I say, man, I have to live with you because mom was about to put me out the house. My mother was tired of me, and I was getting in a lot of trouble. And she's finna have me locked up until I was 21 years old.
Now, how old were you at the time?
14, not 15, I was 14 when I met my father. And that was the first time I had ever seen his face or anything. And coming up though as a young boy, I always, I guess I longed for my father, like where he at? Like where my daddy at? Why? You know, my mother had different boyfriends, but they weren't like a father to me. And it was this guy and that guy, and it was a few guys coming up as a child who played father roles to me, but they weren't really fatherly. Some of them weren't really fatherly. And as a result of that, you know, I was getting into a lot of trouble. And at 16 years old, I wound up going to prison. And from 16 to 24, I was locked up. And when I was locked up, you know, my oldest daughter was born. And 3 months, and I was locked up 3 months after she was born in 1988. And all them years I was locked up, I used to tell myself, like, when I get out, I'm gonna be the best dad to her. Because I was thinking about, like, well, my father, his absentee, in my own life. So I used to have a picture on my cell for all them years, and I used to say, man, when I get out, I'm gonna be the best father. I'm gonna teach her this, I'm gonna protect her, make sure she, and I had no idea I was gonna have 9 children. You know, when I got out, I was like, having baby, you know. And, I think that daughter right there, who's now 29, she really created in me a desire to really be a good father when I get out of prison. That's all I had to hold on. I didn't really have too much to hold on when I was locked up. I wanted to see my daughter more than anything else in this world, more than my mother, more than my brothers and sisters, aunties and uncles, my daughter and my grandmother. They gave me hope and inspiration, you know.
Now, you had a pretty rugged relationship with your mother.
Right.
And that's at the crux of who you are. Your mother's relationship with you, or your relationship with her, as well as your relationship or non-relationship with your father. Right. And yet you were able to reconcile all of that and be the kind of man that you are today. So I admire that. I truly admire that about you. But there are a lot of brothers out here in the world who have children who've never seen their children. So actually it's like those children are you. Right. When you were a little boy. Never saw your father, always wanting to see your father. What is that about these young men who have children? And I know you can't speak for all of them, but you probably have an idea. What is it about these young men that are not dealing with their children? They're having babies, but they're not doing anything with them. Right. And so the onus is on the mother to take care of the children, or the child, or the children. Yeah. What is that about?
I think some of it is, like when I study psychology and history, I know some of it have a social context and a historical context. With during the time of slavery, when black men were made to produce children, but they weren't allowed to take care of the children. No parental, no father status. It was just produce, more slaves for the plantation.
Okay, 200 years later.
Yeah, 200 years later. So now, 200 years later, I think what's going on now is that we don't have the example, because there's so many brothers now absent from their children's life, like the generation above us. Mm-hmm. You know, I think I once read that, like back in the 60s and 50s and 60s, probably most of the households in the black community, the father was present.
Yes, he was, because my father was
in
there.
the 70s and 80s, you know, it started changing. And I think part of the influx of drugs and, you know, back in them days, the Black Liberation Movement, Civil Rights Movement, it was a little bit more consciousness going on in the community. But in the 70s and 80s, like, fathers was almost gone. Now, when I was growing up, I can count on one hand the number of my friends who knew their father. Like one hand, who everybody knew, like, that's his daddy. All of us, nobody knew their father though, and all of us wound up in penitentiary or dead. I think right now I'm thinking about all the friends who was 14, 15, 12, 13 who was killed back in the 80s and 90s, early 80s and 90s, and never had a chance to grow up. But almost none of us knew our fathers though. None of us. You know, we had people in the community and things like that, but none of us knew our father. So I think like whatever happened in that time frame in the 70s, 60s, late 60s, early 70s, like whatever happened in that period, somebody dropped the ball in terms of being a parent. And I think probably because a lot of parents at that time with integration had came in, so we was able to get better jobs, we was able to get into the corporate world. So it seemed like what happened was a lot of people who was there, men who were there in the community at one time, they was able to move out of the community, go into the suburbs, go into certain areas, and they left a big void in the inner cities, you know, for role models and things like that. You know,
and the ones who were in jail as well, too.
Right. And then, so what was left there was the pimps and the hustlers and the drug dealers and the gangbangers. And so when I was coming up, they was everywhere. I was able to see them. I was seeing them with the Cadillacs and the 9/8s and the big hats, and all that stuff was fascinating, you know. But the doctors and the lawyers and anything of a value, they was gone. You know, they was all gone. They had all moved about the community, you know.
Wow. And that is true. So these young men now who are having children, it seems as if I'm finding men now, young men now, millennials, who are in their 20s and early 30s who are having children. They seem to be a lot more conscientious about being a father.
Right.
And that's wonderful that perhaps it's coming back around now.
Right.
You know, the value and the importance of fatherhood and them realizing how important that is. But I want to get back with your book, 17 Lessons on Living Authentically, straight up, by Ghazi. 17 Lessons on Living Authentically. Give us one of those lessons, just one,
like,
so just to get a peep into the book.
Yes, like the first one is authenticity starts in the heart. You know, you got to be true to yourself from the core of yourself, like from your being. You know, oftentimes people think being authentic is certain clothes that we wear, you know, certain language that we use, or a certain mosque or church that we attend. That's not necessarily authentic if it's not here, if it's not in the heart. And sometimes, because I found myself doing things that I thought was authentic because people expected of me and I enjoyed doing it, but if it wasn't from the heart though, if it didn't come in here, it really wasn't authentic to me. You know, I really didn't have that feeling, that connectedness to it.
Well, what is authentic? What to you? What is authentic?
It's like when it like true, being so true to yourself, where your internal world and your external world resonates.
Okay.
They like go hand in hand. There's no conflict between my heart and my world. I'm true to that, good, bad, or ugly. You know, I'm true to it. This is who I am. You know,
I'm trying not to be someone else.
I ain't trying to be nobody else. In the areas where I need improvement, I work to improve it. You know, I don't fake like I'm perfect. I don't play like that. I don't fake like I'm a perfect father, the perfect husband. I don't play like that. I keep it real, true to myself. And in areas where I'm weak at, I try to seek people who can help me move toward perfection. You know, rather than wearing a mask. You know.
So you would say that you have mentors.
Oh yeah.
So we always have someone who we can go to, who we can use as guides, who can direct us into the area that we find that we may want to move in.
Right.
And you mentor young men. Now you have 9 children of your own,
Right.
but you still find the time to mentor others.
Right.
How do you do that?
How I find the time?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's hard. but I make it happen. It's almost like I don't sleep now. You know, my wife, she's like, you have to sleep, what? Like, I mean, many years to get 8 hours of sleep for me, it's almost like that's paradise because I don't get that kind of sleep. 4 or 5 hours, I'm good. You know, so I'm out like all day. I'm always into something. And oftentimes I take my children with me and make them a part of it. So when I'm doing things in the community and I'm doing things with other young people, I often include my children. So, you know, it'd be like a double whammy. I'm a father and helping somebody else at the same time.
Right, you know? And then you have your children as volunteers or as
Yeah, right.
helpmates, right? I'm really interested in us talking about the young men. men, particularly those young men who are growing up without fathers, and what are some of the things that we can do as mothers to give them some balance, because we can't raise men. We can raise, we can't make them into men, but we can give them the love that they absolutely need in order to succeed in the world, but they need much more.
Right.
And I know that our time is coming, and so when we come back, I want to talk to Ghazi, or we're going to hear from Ghazi, on what can we do as mothers to try and create some balance in our sons' lives when there are no fathers, or where there is no father in the home. So come back so you can hear this, okay?
Little things that might seem simple could have such a big impact. I'm putting my effort towards an outcome. You have to put effort into it to be part of a community. When you play the lottery, your money stays here in Arizona. It actually goes back to your community. You're helping out your state.
Thanks for coming back. I'm Fatima Halimi, and you're watching Focus. And you see this book, Straight Up, 17 Lessons of Living Authentically by Ghazi. Well, with me today is the author of this book, Ghazi Muhammad. And when we left, we said that we were going to kind of talk about young men and mothers, single mothers, and what we can do in order to effectively raise our sons without fathers. Right. And sometimes we just have no choice. Now, I have to say this, though. There are some men who do want to be involved in their sons' lives and their children's lives. And there are some mothers who are preventing that for whatever their reasons are. But whatever they are, you need to stop, because that's petty, and whatever's going on with you and the man has nothing to do with the man and his child. Now, if the man is abusing the children, yeah, keep him away. But if he's not, if he loves his children, then you need to get off of your stuff. You need to get off of your stuff and allow those children to be with their father. That's more important than any ego trip that you might be on. So that being said, Ghazi, let's talk about what we can do as mothers to ensure that our sons grow up balanced, because we can't make them into men. You know, as a matter of fact, sometimes we do more harm than good. As much as we love them and as much as we want to do good for them, sometimes we pamper them too much. We baby them too much. We don't allow them to flex their own masculine muscles, because we don't know how to do that, because we don't have masculine muscles. So what do you recommend?
That's good. And you know, I'm glad you said what you said, because recently, I'm going to tell you a brief story. Recently, a mother here in Phoenix called me. Her son is 14 years old, and she don't know what to do with him. Mm-hmm. And he disrespecting her, you know, he rising up on her. And so she called me and said, you know, can you come talk to my son? And at that particular day, he was like acting a zip fool. He was kicking and fighting, but I had to physically restrain him until I got there. And they were like, okay, Ghazi is here. I'm like, you know, let him go. You know, I got him. And I took the young man, and he and I went out to breakfast. And I took him to breakfast. And the mother like, you gonna reward him? You know? I say, well, you know, I want to put him in the atmosphere where he calmed down. So he and I went to breakfast. And I started asking him questions. And I asked him, I say, so what's going on in your mind? You know, why you acting the way you acting? Because he's a bright young man, but there's something going on with him when he's acting out in school with his mother and everything. This guy started telling me all kind of things about how he's hurt, that his mother and father separated. His mother oblivious to this, right? His mother is telling him that his father ain't about nothing. She trying to put this in his brain. This young boy tells me, this young brother say to me, he say, you can't tell me that my daddy is all bad, because I got too many memories of good times with my father when him playing ball with me. He say, I know my daddy not perfect. He make mistakes because he hustle, he in the street life or whatever. And this young boy recognized that. He said he not perfect, but my mama can't tell me he all bad neither. And she's trying her best because her and the father are at odds and she don't like him. So she's trying to like almost talk the boy into hating his father. And the boy is rebelling against that.
Hold that thought. Rule number one, never talk negative about the other parent. The child will see for themselves what's going on. So you don't have to say anything. All you have to do is shower your child with love, loving thoughts, and loving words. Never say anything negative about the absent parent, whether it's the mother or the father.
Right.
Okay.
And you know, with that, what mothers don't understand is that when you do that, like in the case of this young brother, he really started developing resentment for his mother. Mm-hmm. And he started developing the hatred she was trying to get him to project towards his father. He really started projecting it towards his mother. And in his own little way, he like, and his mother said to me, she say, Brother Gazi, he don't fear me. I want him to fear me. And I say,
why?
I'm assuming you want him to respect you instead of fear you. I say, because he's not gonna fear you. He's bigger than his mother. Even if he was smaller, he got a heart. He told me, he said, my mother want me to be scared of her. He said, I'm not scared of her. He like, I love my mother. She do a lot for me because she kind of spoiled him.
Right.
Jordans and buy him all kind of gadgets and, he get everything he want. He don't really want for nothing. He's not suffering. But at the same time, mother's working like several jobs. She's not really there. And I told her, I said, well, I know you got to work to pay your bills, but it's a price you're going to pay for being absent in terms of your mother duty. It's just a price you're going to have to pay for that.
Hold up, rule number 2. You can't buy your children off. Stop showering them with all of these gifts that they probably don't even deserve. So just chill with that, okay? Hold on to your money and show them how to work for what they want.
Yes, ma'am. That's absolutely beautiful. And also, I think that what I suggested to the mother was to expose him as much as possible to men in the community who are positive. That's a key with me. Like most of them don't have exposure to men because sometimes the mother, unfortunately, she becomes so bitter towards the father, the baby father, or the ex-husband.
She mad at all men.
She mad at all men.
Crazy.
And she don't want to connect to nobody. And then she want to suffer and smother him and protect him against what she perceives as harm that the father would do, but she protect him against all men, even positive men. And, her radars go up. I don't trust you neither. I don't trust around my son. But really, young boys learn how to roar by being around other men, And I think what's going on now, because I have a lot of friends, I know a lot of young guys now who are single fathers, Now, of my 9 children, 4 of them is now my wife's children.
Right.
So I was a single father for 6 years, raising my 4 children, my 3 boys and a girl for 6 years by myself. And I know a lot of young guys doing that now. And actually, on the next book that I'm coming out with is Hearts of the Father. And it's a one-man journey to find his humanity through fatherhood. But I got that in the Bible, in the book of Malachi. It says that in the last day, God will turn the hearts of the children back to the Father, and the fathers back to the children. And I think, even though I know they have a spiritual meaning, I think they have a literal meaning too. Because a lot of young men I'm talking to now that have children, they really want to be a part of their children. It ain't like it used to be. Like, I just want to have babies and just leave my babies in. Even the ones who sagging, they pants, smoking blunts, it's something in them where they want to be fathers the best way they know how. Now, they may not be the best example, but they want to be a father. They want to be there. They want to work with their children. And, just last night I had a guy tell me, I got a call from St. Louis, and a guy was on the phone with a 15-year-old that he was trying to counsel. And I talked to him, and they called me through Facebook Messenger. And he said, and the one who was talking, the man, he smoked blunts, he hustled and everything, but he's trying to give good advice to this young boy and telling him, you don't want to go on the streets. I want to stop you from doing that. I want you to talk to Gaza, And he asked me to send him my book, actually. I got to do that today when I leave. I got to go to the post office. But it was something how, even though this man is not the best example, it's something in his heart where I want best for you because I've seen so many of my friends be destroyed from that lifestyle, and I don't want to destroy the next generation.
Here's another one. Parents, none of us are perfect. You're not perfect, mothers, fathers, you're not perfect. But what we can do is love our children perfectly, as best we can. And have honor and respect, not only for your child, but for yourself. Learn to listen to your children. Learn to watch and see what is bothering them and have a discussion with them. Don't talk at them, talk to them. Listen to what they're saying. You don't always have the best advice, but there may be someone else that you could bring into the fold that can talk to your son or talk to your daughter. I am excited about the community getting this book. I'm excited about young men and young women reading this book. And we did take it to Africa. We took it to Ghana, and the wife of the king got a picture with it, and we presented her a picture, a book as well. I hope she gave it
Right.
she gave it a book, right?
Right.
Right. So I'm very excited about that. So Ghazi, is there anything that you want to close out with? Talking to the parents, talking to the kids, talking to any of them. Is anything that you want to close out with?
It's just a message to the fathers. You know, one thing I'm learning, and I think I'm detailing this in this next book I'm putting together, is I'm coming at it from a different angle. Most time we read about the effect that they have on children with fathers being absent, and how it's emotionally and psychologically affect them. But I'm coming at it from a different angle of the lessons that a man get being active in their children's life. See, like being there, a full-time dad, my children helped me to grow up. I mean, they in fact made a man out of me. So I'm trying to teach them valuable lessons, but I've learned lessons from them that I believe that as a father, you won't get nowhere else. It ain't in the Bible, it ain't in the Quran, you don't get to church. It's gonna be on-the-job training. You're gonna have to be there, active in your son's life, and that grows you up. So men who really denying themselves access to their children, they really denying themselves a part of their divinity growing up into their divine nature.
Well, there you go, brothers. You want to become the godly man, the man of divinity, as the brother said. And we're not talking about religion here.
Right.
We're talking about spiritual consciousness. We're talking about the highest consciousness. You want to reach your highest peak as a man, just as women, you want to reach your highest peak as a woman? Well, then we need to really go through the children. We need to become the best mothers we can be. We have to become the best fathers. We have to be present. And just because your child is there in the home with you, mom or dad, doesn't mean that you're present. We have to be present in our children's lives and understand that we brought them forth, so let's bring them on. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Ghazi, for
Thank you
joining
so
us.
much.
And we'll see you next time when Focus continues.
Thank you for joining us for another edition of Focus. And if you'd like to contact us, if there's a topic you'd like to see us present or someone you'd like us to talk to, the information is right up on the screen. So thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week, same station, same time, when Focus continues.